The regular meeting of the Mishawaka Common Council for Monday, August 7th, 2023 will please come to order. Good evening. For those of you who are in attendance, welcome. If you would, please take a moment to check your cell phone to make sure that you have placed it on silent or vibrate, and we appreciate that. For those of you who are participating remotely, we welcome you also. To that end, members of the public participating remotely are asked to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point in the public hearing, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting such comments as they may wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing his or her public comment, members of the public are once again asked to place their microphone on mute, and we thank all of you for your cooperation this evening. At this time, if you would, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Hazen.
Here.
Mr. Belovich.
Here.
Mr. Mamalenti.
Here.
Mr. Benicki.
Here.
Mr. Emmons.
Here.
Mrs. DeMade.
Here.
Mr. Compton.
Here.
Mrs. Volker.
Here.
Mr. Hixenbach.
Here. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of July 17th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections? Then hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President, we have petition number 2023-18 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. Petition for vacation of public right-of-way. This is right-of-way vacation of unimproved alley, north-south alley bound by West Front Street, North Spring Street, West First Street, and North Mill Street. This is signed by Kenneth Prince, Executive Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Mishawaka. We also have petition number 2023-19 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. Petition for PUD amendment to allow microblading in Unit 14 of 6910 North Main Street. The contact person is Nicole Welesinski. We have a public hearing on vacation 2023-02 required by state statute on behalf of Todd Lang and Nathan Sherman, Gary and Linda King, and Rachel Morris, a petition for vacation of public right-of-way for the first east-west alley north of East Marion Street.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed vacation 2023-02. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this matter, if you would, please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name and address for the record. Is there anyone here to speak with regard to Marion Street?
I was hoping that my neighbor would come here first, but I'm Gary King, 7230 East Marion Street, Mishawaka, Indiana. And we were at the meeting about 2 or 3 weeks ago when the Plan Commission approved our request to vacate the alley. Just for general reference, the alley has not been used for anything. I have the pictures that I can put. You have a document reader that everybody wants to see the pictures?
Mr. King, we also have a staff report that includes pictures and schematics and some background information. So
Okay,
I believe we already have that. You're welcome to
If you have
distribute
all
that
the
to us if you like.
information that you need at this point, then I would just respectfully request that this vacation of this alley be approved. I appreciate
All right.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. King? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward.
Todd Lang, and again, we were here 3-4 weeks ago, and just
Who is he?
looking that this has been vacated probably over 14 years that we're aware of, at least, if not more. And we've been, since we've owned the home, we've been keeping that lot up and the other side of the lot that we're discussing. So again, we just feel that this would be beneficial to us and beneficial to the city to not have to worry about that piece of property.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions from the council? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Then at this time, we will close the public hearing on proposed vacation 2023-02 pursuant to state law. Later in tonight's proceedings, we will conduct second reading and public hearing of the ordinance dealing with the proposed vacation. But thank you, folks.
We have a public hearing on vacation 2023-03 required by state statute. On behalf of the city of Mishawaka, have filed a petition for vacation of public right-of-way, part of Front Street, not improved as a street between the east side of Church Street and Main Street.
Thank you. We'll now open a public hearing on proposed vacation 2023-03. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. The area requested for vacation before you this evening is the area in front of the former police station. Essentially, over time, that area has been reconfigured multiple times. So the state reconfigured when the state highway went through and Main Street was connected to Church Street. Front Street previously connected, and the residual piece was left right in front of the police station. And when we built the police station, we really didn't care because we were owners of the property. Now that we have conveyed that property to Cressy and Everett Commercial for their business there, we have a number of plats going on, not just on that piece of property, but also in the downtown where we're cleaning up loose ends. This is one of those loose ends we want to clean up by vacating that former right-of-way. And keep in mind that we are retaining the right of access going through the property, so it has access to the signal. We're retaining easements over the property for the sewer that traverses the property. In addition, as part of the platting of the property, this isn't in the vacation, but we are also getting right-of-way dedicated for the existing Riverwalk connection that's by the raceway. So all of that is part of the purchase agreement that was executed when the property was transferred. We're merely looking for the vacation at this point in time to, again, clean up that front portion of the property. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is anyone participating remotely interested in speaking in opposition? Thank you. Are there any council members wishing to speak? Then at this time, we'll close the public hearing on this proposed vacation and once again, take action on it later on in tonight's agenda. Thank you. This evening, we have no report of any special committee, so we'll move into ordinances on first reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-35, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, establishing a designated outdoor refreshment area.
Thank you. Proposed ordinance 2023-35 will be assigned to the Public Health and Safety Committee. And for the record, given the significance of this matter, the public should anticipate that the Public Health and Safety Committee will be holding a special committee meeting in the near future in order to receive presentation from the administration with regard to this proposed ordinance, and also to provide the council with an opportunity to ask further questions. Furthermore, in light of some pre-existing travel plans on multiple members of the council, the public should not anticipate that we would be voting on this matter on August 21st, but rather, and I think it's quite likely that we would receive a request for postponement from the administration in light of that fact. It would be rescheduled for public hearing and final action at a later date on into September.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-36, an ordinance amending Chapter 50 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as Parks and Recreation Ordinance of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to amend the municipal code for the DORA.
Proposed ordinance 2023-36 will also be assigned to the Public Health and Safety Committee. And once again, for the record, since this ordinance operates in conjunction with the previously referred to ordinance, this also will be part of the work of the Public Health and Safety Committee in terms of additional public hearings. And the public also should anticipate that this will not be heard on August 21st, but will be heard at the same evening that we hear the DORA ordinance. Thank you. Resolutions.
Resolution R 2023-19, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving an interlocal government agreement between the City of South Bend, Indiana, the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, and the Board of Commissioners of St. Joseph County, Indiana, for the mutual investigation of officer-involved shootings in St. Joseph County.
Thank you. We will now move into a public hearing on proposed resolution 2023-19. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. President, honorable council members, Ken Witkowski, Chief of Police, Mishawaka. I am here to speak in favor of Resolution 2023-19. This is a practice we've been doing since the homicide unit dispersed back probably 2 years ago, maybe 3. So we have never, even when the homicide unit was there, if we had an officer involved in a shooting or anything other that would result in death, we'd have the other agencies do the investigation. So no one would investigate their own officers. So this kind of just outlines all of that. And I say it's past practice. This is what we've been doing moving forward, and this is kind of like, this finalizes the practice of the past, what we do. So it's South Bend, Central County, Mishawaka. Just an example, say we have an officer-involved shooting, we would not investigate our own. We would bring in investigators from county and South Bend to investigate it. And it goes around the circle on who's ever involved and who's not. Kind of in a nutshell. I can answer further questioning if you like.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Witkowski? All right. Thank you for the information, Chief.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone physically present this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Bednicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
The resolution passes 9-0. Resolution R 2023-20, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, authorizing the City of Mishawaka Redevelopment Commission to purchase property in accordance with the City of Mishawaka Municipal Code, Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 3, Section 2-492 and 493.
Thank you. We will now move into the public hearing of proposed resolution 2023-20. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, member of council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. The resolution you have before you, if IT could switch to the very last page of the resolution that shows the drawing. Let's give them a second to see if they can pull that up. See if they were sleeping in the back. That's, Well, I'll continue to talk while they pull it up. So as you are all familiar with Temple Park, the park itself is actually broken into 3 different parcels. There we go. Last page, one more, there you go. So you have to read sideways, but the blue area, so they get a gold star for being able to flip it. I just want to say thank you to IT for that. So the blue area that's highlighted is one of those 3 parcels, and going back some 50 years, the city had leased this property from Twin City Baptist Church, and we had basically conducted park operations on it. I will say the blue area is the part that we don't own, but the actual lease area was the middle parcel when you actually plotted the legal description. So the lease originally wasn't correct anyway, that we were trying to fix. So as part of our improvements to Temple Park, we were just researching this issue and came to a verbal agreement with Twin City Baptist Church regarding how to proceed, because we ultimately, even though Twin City didn't have any plans for expansion in that area, we didn't want to make park improvements without the understanding that they're going to be there for the life of those improvements. So essentially, what we identified as a desire to purchase the area outlined in blue. And at that point in time, Twin City Baptist Church, and they've been great partners on this, indicated that, yeah, we don't have any immediate need for it, but we would like potential room for future expansion. At the same time, the green area is area that was purchased by redevelopment. We had demolished a dilapidated home on that property. So it's currently vacant, and we were planning on using it for the first-time homebuyer program at some point in time. So they requested, rather than just a straight purchase of the blue property, that the church would acquire the green property. So in addition to that, as we were laying out the park, we noticed there was a jog in the property line that runs east-west, and that's denoted in red there. So ultimately, we had Ed Fisher, who did the replat for us of the property, basically go out there and stake that property line so we could have a straight fence running east-west that would define the park and the separation between the park and the church property, so we wouldn't have odd jogs in the fence going through there. And so that's roughly 5 feet of property that's being conveyed from the city to the church as part of that. So what we did was we had 2 appraisals done of the area in blue. We deducted at the same square foot price the area in green, and at this point in time, we're merely asking the Common Council for permission to sell the property, which is really outlined in red. The Redevelopment Commission has already authorized the sale of the property in green, and then the purchase of the property in blue. So if all that sounds confusing, it's taken years to get to this point with the legal descriptions and the platting and correcting this problem. So, and the ultimate transfer of funds, if you will, is about $30,000 for the purchase of property. So it's more meaningful in terms of cleaning it up from a title standpoint for the perpetuity of the park than it is a significant financial commitment. But we appreciate your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If so, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone present with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members wishing to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Resolution passes 9-0. Resolution number 2023-21, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, adding parcels to the city's property acquisition list associated with the previously approved Common Council Resolution 2014-07, which approved an order of the City of Mishawaka Plan Commission approving a certain declaratory resolution, an amendment to the boundaries of the Northwest Area Improvement Project, consolidation of the South Side Economic Development Area, and the Northwest Improvement Project into one consolidated area improvement project, and an amendment to the Economic Development Plan for the Consolidated Area Improvement Project adopted by the City of Mishawaka Redevelopment Commission.
Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2023-21. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development for the city. Going back to IT, if you could also go to the very last page of the resolution. Thank you. So as Clerk Block so aptly read, that I'll put in English for you because it was legalese. As part of any TIF district, when you are looking to acquire property, you have an improvement plan where you have to identify those properties that you're acquiring. And in 2014, when we did a wholesale amendment of the tax increment financing district that included many road corridors and many redevelopment properties, we thought it would be more truthful to come to the council on an individual basis than it would be to try to add literally what would have been hundreds of properties to the acquisition list at that point in time with really no discussion. And we didn't want to hold up the process, again, going back to 2014 when we amended it. So since that time, we've routinely brought you additions to the acquisition list, and that's what I'm here to do this evening. So the property that you're looking at on the screen is the former motor pool property on Cedar Street. That's the 512 North Cedar Street address. The areas in question that we're looking to add to the acquisition list include 7 properties. And I should say with the acquisition list, this is not like a road right-of-way project. When you acquire property for redevelopment, there is no eminent domain that comes into discussion. So essentially, this is a willing buyer, willing seller situation. So if one of these property owners does not wish to sell their property, unless we're putting a road through that we're using an eminent domain process, there is no requirement that they sell the property to us. We merely wanted to be forthright and bring this to the council, as I indicated in my email, all at one time. We currently had the 2 property owners that have the stars listed on the diagram on the screen come to us and ask if the city would be interested in buying the properties for our redevelopment project. And we ultimately came to an agreement, and we have signed agreements on those 2 properties that have yet to be presented to the Redevelopment Commission. At the same time, 420 North Cedar Street, which is the property at the very bottom of the screen, has also contacted us about if we had an interest in purchasing that property. We've also had very preliminary discussions with the hardware store. On the 2 properties to the north, we've had no discussions at all with those 2 homeowner-occupied properties, and as I indicated in my email, it's probably unlikely that we would acquire them. But because they are these 7 properties represent all the properties that are adjacent to the motor pool property, we felt it was appropriate to bring it to you at this point in time to include, again, for the acquisition list purpose, not necessarily that we are going to acquire them, but we do have an interest in acquiring them if they were to become available. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Before I finish, I will say that, as I indicated, based on, it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg theory, so the cleanup costs associated with the motor pool are contingent on having a plan for redevelopment, and ultimately these acquisitions will aid in our planning for redevelopment. We also obviously have had other cash or funding priorities for the city, so this has been pushed down the road a little bit. And so ultimately, I would see cleanup on the property still being a year or 2 away, regardless of whether these acquisitions move forward or don't move forward. We ultimately need a developer with a plan to come forward for the property that we find appropriate. We've had a little bit of interest in the property, but again, because we haven't had the priority or with our finances to move it forward, we've held off any serious discussions on that property until such a time as we would have those funds available. With that, again, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe Councilwoman Volker has a question. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and do my job if that's okay, Mr.
Did that, sorry.
Mrs.
She was waving at you, Mr. President.
Ken, you might have said this already, but there are 2 properties that are not included in this, that's the blue house and the greenhouse, that are adjacent to the building that just got torn down at the corner of Cedar and Mishawaka Avenue.
Okay?
So are those houses that would be targets for this redevelopment, or are those
We
houses?
may consider them at some point in time, but they are not currently identified as being included in this request to being added to the acquisition list. If they, that corner property is challenging because the corner is actually owned by now Lamar, formerly Burkhart, for the billboard. So in order to assemble property is more difficult in that area. The one property just had been a blight for so long that we really wanted to get rid of it, is why it's gone. Ultimately, we'd love to see that entire corner kind of changed and improved, but it really takes place one property at a time, and we're just not ready to consider anything further south of that.
Have you guys considered the corner of, it would be the northwest corner of Mishawaka and Cedar?
I believe that apartment complex had been for sale, if that's what you're
It's
referring
a
to.
white house. I don't know.
Right, I think it's broken
apartment.
into many multifamily.
And it's got a
units.
huge electric box on the corner.
Mm,
Anyway.
You
that
probably know better than I.
Seems like,
Yeah.
just seems like a really challenging property to be utilized as residential the way it is right now, really undesirable. So, and then, so you're saying that you're thinking next year you would begin the work on the.
So that would be the soonest that it
Okay.
would happen. Really, it requires the development. If you, and I equate it to Uniroyal. When we did Uniroyal, we didn't remove all the foundations and all the work that was required when we brought Uniroyal. We took it down to a certain depth. And then ultimately, as these properties are being redeveloped, the remaining foundations that are in place are actually being removed as part of the development. And that's really what has to happen as part of a redevelopment plan. So to get, and I don't want to belabor this, I'm happy to have a separate meeting on this to discuss this property, but there are environmental restrictions that were placed on the former South Bend Modern Molding site. We had a former fuel dispensary that was located in it. There are high concentrations of heavy metals, which is usually only a problem if you have a well system that you're doing on the property. But all those items, including the debris, because like many other former properties owned by the city, this used to be a dump on that property. So there was a lot of debris to clean up. So we want to make the property, you're never going to make a brownfield property like this perfectly clean, but you want to make it clean, acceptable for the repurposing, in this case for residential use. And so really, we could spend millions upon millions of dollars to clean up everything on that property, or we could strategically clean it up at a lower cost if we have a development plan associated with it. So really, the two are tied together. We want a development plan with it so we can appropriately spend the taxpayer money on the cleanup.
Thanks, Ken.
Sure.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Prince? And Ken, just to follow up on a couple of your comments. So, going back to your discussion of eminent domain and the fact that this action that's being proposed this evening doesn't exercise the power of eminent domain that governmental entities have. When we look at the map, and thank you for so clearly labeling and identifying the various parcels, that's helpful to me at least, and I suspect others. But with regard to those parcels that are identified for acquisition that do not have signed purchase agreements in place, is it a fair summary then to say that we haven't committed to purchase those, is anticipated that as they would become available and there'd be some interest, and as the timing and the finances allow for it, we're interested in it, but no deal has been consummated at this point in time, correct?
That is correct.
And if an owner of one of those parcels that's reflected on the map but does not have a current purchase agreement in place chose to sell it to someone, they wouldn't be prohibited from doing so. The property would stay on the list regardless, but they have the ability to be able to sell and otherwise use their property as any of us would use if we own the same.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen.
Yes.
Mr. Belovich.
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti.
Yes.
Mr. Benicki.
Yes.
Mr. Emmons.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade.
Yes.
Mr. Compton.
Yes.
Mrs. Volker.
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball.
Yes.
Resolution passes 9-0.
Ordinances on second reading.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-25, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from S1 extensive open space to C3 City Center Commercial, northeast corner of Cedar Street and East 3rd Street. The petitioner has requested postponement.
Mr. Compton.
Make a motion that we honor the petitioner's request.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone further public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-25. Mr. Compton, as a point of clarification, if memory serves, the request was for postponement until August 21st. Is that in fact your motion?
That would be perfect.
All right. So a motion has been made and seconded to postpone this matter for further action until August 21st of this year. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The matter will be postponed until August 21st, when it will be heard as part of our regular council meeting.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-31, an ordinance to establish 1202 East Mishawaka Avenue as a local historic landmark within the city of Mishawaka, Indiana. Petitioner has requested postponement.
Mrs. Volker.
Hello, Mr. President. I would like to also honor the petitioner's request to postpone, and I believe it's also to the 21st of August.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone further action on proposed ordinance 2023 until our regular meeting of August 21st at the request of the petitioner. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Then hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The matter will be postponed until our meeting on August 21st.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-32, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is right-of-way vacation for the first east-west alley north of East Marion Street, starting at Christie Ann Street, then to the west 110 feet for the first north-south alley.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred matter of proposed ordinance number 2023-32, report that they examined said matter, and that their opinion, it should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will now move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-32. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward. And for the record, we will incorporate by reference the comments that were made by the two residents earlier in the public hearing that was held on this matter. But again, we'll invite anyone else who wishes to speak on the proposed vacation having to do with the alley north of East Marion Street to please come forward to the podium. Seeing no one, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor?
They're here.
Then is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Beninky?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 9-0. Proposed ordinance number 2023-33, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is right-of-way vacation for part of Front Street not improved between the east side of Church and Main Street connector and the St. Joseph River Raceway.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2023-33, report that they have examined said matter and their opinion should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll now move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-33. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward.
Mr. President, members of council, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. I'm merely asking that my previous comments be reflected in this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Prince? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If so, please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone in attendance this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Beninky?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 9-0. Proposed ordinance number 2023-34, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from C1 General Commercial to C6 Linear Office Commercial to permit a residential unit at 1644 Lincoln Way East.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2023-34, report that they have examined said matter and in their opinion should be adopted. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? And hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? With that, we will move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-34. Anyone wishing to speak in favor with respect to 1644 Lincoln Way East, if you would, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Cecilia Brown, and my address is 56827
If I could, thank you.
Sundown Road, South Bend. I don't have anything to add because I was here for the last meeting, and I was just told to come and be here for questions or anything about the property, but I want to purchase it to transition a med spa into the building. So,
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council? Mr. Compton?
Thank you, Ms. Brown, for coming. As I read through this, I understand that you're attempting to purchase this property,
yes, sir.
and as I understand it, you want to use it for commercial and also maybe have an apartment in it? Is
Yes,
that what
sir.
I'm gathering here?
Yes.
Okay. How big will the apartment be?
It'll be a single-use unit. It's actually going to be a private unit for family of mine. So it'll just be a one-bedroom, kitchen, living room, single-unit resident.
Okay. Is there off-street parking here? Is there parking available?
No, there's not off-street parking. It's on the lot, and there's like 7 spots available. And
Oh, okay, for the business, and they will utilize that as well.
And then there would be 2 that would transition to a resident for a tenant and guest.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. You know what, I do have a question. I'm sorry, would you mind coming back up? I don't want to, I'm not putting you on the spot or anything. I was just curious, are you moving your business from someplace else, or are you starting a new business?
We split our time between Arizona and Indiana, so we felt that it would be a good time to open a second location in Indiana. We'll maintain our business in Arizona, but that's pretty self-sufficient. We have great staff there, so it would just be a second location here.
And what kind of services will you provide?
Well, we offer a lot of services. We offer body contouring, laser fat reduction, hair reduction, hydrofacial, Geneo, just about spray tan, just about anything you can think of. We're always changing our menu and adding new services that are popular with the public.
And are you from Mishawaka? Is that why you chose?
I'm from South Bend.
Okay, well, welcome to Mishawaka. Thanks. Wish you lots of luck in your business.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you again, ma'am. We are still at the point where the floor is open for any questions or comments from the council. Then hearing none, I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hixenbaugh?
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 9-0.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move into privilege of the floor, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to come to the podium and speak with respect to non-agenda items only under
New
privilege of the
things can't
floor.
always happen.
Since we appear to have no takers, is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor? Thank you. With that, we'll move into unfinished business, of which there is none. So new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Mr. Emmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that August 17th, we will have their West End meeting, monthly meeting at St. Babel's. We'll have State Senator David Niskotsky there talking about the new legislation issues that were passed down at the State House, mainly some of the new laws that went into effect in July and some of them that will go into effect in October. And then he'll be there afterwards to answer any questions that you might have. So again, we invite anybody and all to attend on August 17th, that's Thursday, at St. Babel's School. And as usual, refreshments will be served, and it's West End donuts and that for everybody. There's plenty for everybody. So we look forward to having all of you there, and so that's it.
Thank you. Other new business? Then if there is none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Excuse me.